German U-boats played a vital role for the Kriegsmarine during the Second World War. Their ability to sink thousands of tons of Allied shipping, all while being virtually undetected, struck fear into the enemy. But in 1944, they would take the U-boat concept one step further. A small single-seat submarine would go into production, and this craft could sneak between Allied ships without being noticed. In today's video, we look at the German one-man submarine of World War II. If you enjoy this video and want to see more, hit that subscribe button. It's free and really helps the channel reach more history lovers like you. Considering their technological advancements during the war, Germany was relatively late to the game with the one-man submarine. The Italians managed to put together a successful raid in the port of Alexandria in 1941, which caught their attention. Following that, Germany began experimenting with these craft. The Niger was the first model, and rather than being a submarine, it was more of a human torpedo. That's because it was made up of two standard German torpedoes, one stacked on the other. The top one didn't contain any explosives. Those were removed and a cockpit created inside. A watertight, cleared dome was fixed to the top to allow the pilot to see out. The controls were very basic. They allowed the pilot to control the rudder for steering, as the propellers moved the craft forward at a speed of 3 knots, with a range of around 30 nautical miles. The breathing apparatus inside allowed for only about 2 hours of oxygen, so a speedy operation was necessary with this weapon. Also, it didn't have the ability to submerge. The craft would glide along the surface with the dome sticking out of the water. The pilot would aim using a spike at the front, and once the target was in sight, he could release the lower torpedo, which went towards the enemy and exploded. The craft would then return to base, where the pilot would be released, as he had no way of opening the clear dome from the inside. Around 200 of these would be created, with the first ones entering service in March 1944. In April of the same year, the first operation took place, with 30 craft being sent out to attack Allied ships near Anzio, Italy. 17 of them capsized when they entered the water. Of the other 13, none of them made any successful attacks, and 3 of them didn't come back. One of these is seen here in Allied hands. The craft was beached, and when discovered, the pilot had to be freed from the clear dome. He is seen here. At only 17 years of age, the young German pilot would be able to inform the Allies of how this strange craft worked. The capture of this torpedo submarine allowed the Allies to better understand this German technology. Further missions, which were more successful, would occur in July 1944 off the Normandy coast following the invasion. These would see the craft score hits and sink a number of Allied ships, including minesweepers, a cruiser, and even a British destroyer. During those missions, over 40 craft were deployed, with only 9 returning. The next model would be the improved Marder. This version was affixed with a diving tank, which finally allowed the craft to fully submerge underwater to a depth of around 10 meters or 32 feet. But it wasn't without issue, as maneuvering underwater was difficult, as visibility was, well, terrible. Also, a traditional U-boat has a periscope to allow for navigation and acquisition of the target. These didn't have a periscope, so the pilot would still need to surface to determine his bearings. Of this model, around 300 were built, but only a few actually saw service. A mission took place in the Mediterranean to attack US warships, but failed miserably. Both models were extremely dangerous for the pilot. The fatality rate was at around 80%, which was ridiculously high. If the pilot didn't run out of oxygen, there was potential for the craft to be spotted moving along the surface and engaged by Allied vessels or aircraft. There were also instances of pilots firing the torpedo, which failed to dislodge from the craft. This would result in the torpedo dragging the craft and the pilot towards the target. Ultimately, this German weapon of World War II was probably not their best work. It simply had too many issues to be an effective weapon. What did you think of the German one-man submarines of World War II? How do you think they could have been more effective? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to expand your knowledge and join the growing Premier History community.